Hi my running dudes, I'm Average Dom Slim and I love data. And I also love running. And I also love running data. See what we're doing there? Now I find Strava data a little bit limiting, especially if you don't have premium, but even if you do. But what you can do is you can go onto the Strava website and you can request an archive of all your data and they send it to you. And then you can put it into Excel and you can chop and slice the data and create nice charts and graphs and tables. So that's what I did. So today I want to take you through my data over the last 4 years to have a deep dive into my training and share with you what I found, including indicators of my improvement in performance, changes in mileage and PBs and heart rate, with a specific focus on a 6-month period where every week I ran 100 kilometers. And I want to show you what happened as a result to my running and to my body and to share with you what I learned. I try to answer some pretty big questions, like, is more mileage beneficial to being a better runner? Is it necessary to run high volume in order to be a better runner? And if so, how much should I be running? They're hard questions, I know. I'll do my best. For now, be a legend and press subscribe. Here's some dope theme music, and I'll meet you back for the rest of the show. Alright, you're still here. That's good. So why 4 years? Well, that just happens to be when I got Strava. Before then, I was using a different app, I think. Let's take a little looky, shall we? So in 2021, this was a pretty typical year for me at the time, and it's a good way of explaining that for a long time, I've been a runner, but not a runner in the post-COVID era sense. See, I was running an average of 12 kilometers a week, but regularly, right? So it's a solid weekly fitness regime, but not like the crazy obsessive plans we've come to know and love. So I did 600 kilometers for the year. Now 2022 starts off similar to 2021, but the second half is skewed as this is where I move to the Gold Coast, join a running group, and I start training. You could say this is where I start to become a runner. I do an average of 22 kilometers a week, 1100 kilometers for the year. 2023 is my first full year of training. There looks like some dramatic peaks and troughs, but this is just me amping up mileage and then racing a fair bit. Here I run a couple of marathons only 4 weeks apart, and then take a holiday in the US, and my volume takes a dip. Throughout this year I run 11 races. I clock an average of 67 kilometers a week, and a total of 3,400 kilometers for the year, and that is triple the previous year. Now between December 2023 in June 2024, my mileage increases to 100 kilometers a week on average. This is actually a 7-month period of very solid, very consistent training, and it includes 3 races, or 4. My 2024 halts there for reasons that many of you know, and for others I'll explain soon. But in that 6 months of running in 2024, I clock up 2,600 kilometers at an average of 102 kilometers per week. Now, before we drill down into this 100 kilometer a week period, I want to quickly touch on some interesting, perhaps not surprising, patterns and trends in my data. Let's have a look. So this one's simple, number of runs. In 2021, this looks like only 7 runs a month or twice a week. And in the first 6 months of 2024, I'm running 35 times a month. That's more than every day. I thought, is that even possible? And then I remembered, yeah, I was running 8 times a week. That was over 6 days with 2 doubles. Unbelievable. Sorry, back to it. This just gives you an idea of how much my commitment to running changed. Next one is heart rate. Unfortunately, I didn't have data in 2021. I didn't have a watch. I know that sounds funny. I just used to run with my phone, so I never tracked my heart rate or anything. In 2022, I did get a watch. My average heart rate was 165. This went down to 158 in 2023 and 150 in 2024. Now I found this quite interesting. So this could indicate fitness, and it probably does, but also indicates something else. It indicates more easy running. Back in 2022, when I ran 3 times a week, I would just run however I felt. And usually I felt like running pretty fast. I would just put on my headphones and I would just go. And I feel good running fast, and that's just what I did every time I ran. It wasn't until 2023 when I actually learned about easy running, or some call it recovery running, i.e. just running a bit slower, deliberately. And the idea of saving your energy, saving your efforts for your hard session. So if we have a look at the average speed and distance over these years, so as average distance and total mileage increase over these years, my average speed and my average heart rate decrease. Now let's go even deeper for a second.
Come on, Tom!
So I've broken down my yearly training by average pace. To make this applicable to everyone, I've categorized runs slower than 5:30 pace as super easy, 5 to 5:30 pace as easy, 4:30 to 5 as medium, 4 to 4:30 as fast, and quicker than 4 as super fast. But please don't take the pacing categorizations personally. It's just to give you an idea of how much of my training I'm running slow for me and fast for me. Now in 2021, I ran 0% of my runs super easy and only 1% easy. 1%. 91% of my training was either fast or super fast. That's crazy. Now this is a fairly typical beginner's error. Now look to 2022. Easy running now accounts for 8% of my training, still not a lot, while super fast running has somehow boomed up to 42%. This might indicate an increase in fitness, with still me not knowing quite what I'm doing. 2023, I start to learn the benefit of easy running, and now close to a quarter of my training is either easy or super easy. If you include medium pace runs, we basically have a 60-40 split between easy medium versus fast. By 2024, this is 65-35. Almost 10% of my running is super easy and close to 30% is easy or super easy. Now this data is not perfect because my speed sessions and my thresholds are often hidden as they're combined with a warm up and warm down, which skews the average pace for that session. And my fitness has increased, so a fast run in 2022 at 4:30s is maybe closer to an easy run for me now in 2024. So the meaning of fast versus easy has shifted slightly, but the pattern here is extremely important. That is, we should not be running 90% of our training at a swift pace. And we should be running a significant portion of our training at easy or even super easy pace. You'll soon see how this shift from faster running to slower running as a percentage has been a pillar in my improved performance over the years. I would love to know your thoughts on easy running and if you've had a similar evolution with your training, or maybe you just believe that easy running is a complete waste of time. Let me know in the comments below. Now let's overlay what I like to call the ultimate marker of fitness, and that is race times or PBs. Now some people don't like to use race times because they're few and far between, but any PBs, it just happens to be that I get a lot of my PBs during races. I like racing and I seem to race pretty well. So did all this work and knowledge around higher mileage, more easy running, how to structure sessions, translate to being a better, faster runner? Well, in my case, absolutely it did. My 5K PB in 2021 was around 1850, and in 2024, PB of 1543. In terms of the half marathon, I had a similar journey. I went from 132 in 2021, I didn't even run one in 2022, to 115 in 2023 and 111 in 2024. Marathon, not too much data to go on, but it was 333 before this period, and in this period, I ran a 250 and a 305 on the trails. So you could safely say that I am getting better at running. That's pretty safe. In fact, now let's look much more closely at this 6 or 7 month period where I was running 100 kilometers every week, over 8 runs every week. And this includes weekly a speed session, a threshold workout, a park run, a long run, and 4 easy runs. And what did I achieve? Well, in this period, I ran PBs in the 5K, the 12K, the 15K, and the half marathon. Good. but also notably a stress fracture. Yeah. At the peak of my fitness and my high mileage, I got a bone stress injury in the navicular bone in my foot. And to put it mildly, it ruined everything. It's meant that I've missed over 3 full months of any running, and now including run walks, I've been back running for 2 months. And it'll probably take me another 2 months to get back up to running anything substantial, let alone racing. I also just want to note here that running 8 times a week during this period was a lot. Now, generally, I like to run for joy. And running this much in a week did become a bit of a chore, which was a shame because it lost some of that joy for me. Now, I do admit, if this is temporary, it's just for a training block, then you can switch your focus between running for joy to running for a challenge or running for a different purpose, and that's okay. But it wasn't sustainable for me, and it did get to a period where I was finding it a little bit tiresome, and I was on the verge of kind of running burnout. At some stage, I felt I do have to return to running for joy. Maybe that's just me.
Go on, Dom. Looking good, mate. Looking good.
So what's the point of looking at all this data if we can't draw some lessons from it? So here are some lessons. Number 1, running makes you a better runner. Is this true? Yeah, probably. Firstly, I just want to recognize that there is definitely a correlation, but not definitely causation. Probably, but not definitely. What I mean is, for me at least, there were so many factors that changed in my running at the same time that I increased my mileage. I took running more seriously, I joined a group, I changed my training, I started doing sessions, I raced way more, I got coaching, I listened to running podcasts. I essentially tried to become a better runner. So increased mileage, increased volume was just one factor in a package of things that I did to try and improve my running. And yes, it worked. The other thing I want to note is the law of diminishing returns. And I'll explain this real quickly. If you go from running 0 kilometers to 20 kilometers in a week, you are going to see exponential returns in your fitness, right? If you go from 20 kilometers to 40 kilometers in a week, you're going to see substantial returns, but not as much as when you went from 0 to 20. Same deal, 60 to 40. You're going to get big gains, but going to be smaller. 80 to 60, smaller again. And the idea is that you can't keep the same gains every time you go up. The returns, they diminish. It curves, right? So you need to work out your bang for buck. And what I mean by that, there are a few considerations. One is injuries. Now, the curve for injuries doesn't work the same way. What that means is every package, every extra bit of mileage you do, let's call it 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers, it comes with an increased risk of injury. But your returns on performance are reducing. So each package you increase by actually get you a worse deal. The other thing to consider, especially for us amateur runners, is time. Right? You only have so much time in your week. You're probably working a full-time job and you have a million other hobbies, right? So the idea of increasing your mileage by 20 kilometers is easy to say, but that's a lot of your week. That's another 2 hours, another 3 runs. So you need to weigh up how much actual benefit is that going to give to my running that I'm taking from my week when I could be doing other things, spending time with family or friends, or even things related to running, like sleeping more or meal prepping so you can eat healthy. So it's just for you to consider, just for you to weigh up when you decide how much mileage you can and should run. But it's going to be dependent on you. The more you run, the more you should be running easy. Now, if you have a small, tight regime, you might be doing more faster running. It might look something like this: a speed session, an easy run, and a long run. If you're running 3 days. If you're running 4 days, you might have a tempo session on there. So you're probably going to have a higher percentage of fast training than someone who's running 5, 6, 7, 8 times a week. When you add 5, 6, 7, 8, they should all be easy running, right? So the percentage of easy running is going to increase as you run more, and that makes sense. That's a good thing. So get to love easy running. So you can use heart rate as an indicator of your running performance, but it is flawed, and that is because, as a great example in my case, my heart rate decreased over the years. As I said, probably an indicator of fitness, but it's also because I did more easy running. So it's not going to be a perfect measure. But kind of week on week or month on month, if your heart rate is going down, that is a good sign of your fitness. The other good sign which is not in the data, is VO2 max. I think this is probably the best indicator you can use of your fitness as an athlete. However, it's our way of measuring VO2 max, which is usually by our Garmin or other technology, that is a little bit flawed. It's not a perfect measure. If you want a perfect measure, you have to go into one of those labs and put the oxygen thing on your face and get the proper reading, but none of us can afford that in terms of money or time. So using our gadgets, our technology is a pretty good way of just tracking that VO2 max, and that will indicate you're improving in fitness. Now, I will leave you with this last point, and that is consistency. And I know you're thinking, I'm always harping on about consistency. If we bring back up my graph for one last time, you might look at it and look at all the spikes and think, that's not consistent, bruh. But can we just add a trend line showing the rolling 6-month average and then also just add the PBs back in? And I think I can safely argue that I have been consistent, that I'm moving in the right direction, and that I've even cashed in on that consistency. Yeah, I'm in a dip right now, but take a look at something else for me. Take a look at Apple stock this month. Oh, not great. Even look at the 3-month view. Still not great, right? And that's what it can feel like sometimes in your running, when you're not improving, when you're not getting PBs, when you feel like you've plateaued, right? But just look how far you've come. Can we zoom out to 5-year view or the lifetime view? Now check that out. If you look at your running like that, you'll realize you're doing pretty damn good. And I'll be damned if your best isn't yet to come. Keep being consistent. Let me know what you thought of this data deep dive in the comments below. And please let me know if you have any questions about my training, now or historically or into the future. I'd be more than happy to answer them. I'm Average Dom Slim. Do the right thing.